I stood inside the cramped plasma center, my stomach aching after 3 days without a proper meal, when the nurse's expression turned pale as she looked at my blood sample. "Mr. Rafford," she whispered, stepping back from the microscope. "I need to get the director. Now." That was the moment my life split into two parts, before I knew what was in my veins and after. The fluorescent lights above buzzed harshly, making everything look even cheaper. My name is Colton Rafford, and 6 months ago, I owned a demolition company worth $8 million. I managed crews across 3 states, held government contracts, and had a wife who loved to brag to her book club about our vacation home in Aspen. But standing there in that Buchanan Street Plasma Center, watching a young nurse stare at my blood like it was alien, I was just another broke middle-aged man trying to earn $50. "Sir, please don't move," the nurse said. I noticed her trembling hands as she picked up the desk phone. Her tag read Keeley. She'd been kind since I walked in, tired, embarrassed, and desperate, filling out forms that asked things like, "When did you last eat a full meal?" I'd lied. 3 days sounded better than 5. "Is something wrong with my blood?" I asked, my voice cracking as my mind jumped to diseases, cancer, all the ways a body can fail a man who's already lost everything. "No, Mr. Rafford, you're not sick," Keeley said quickly, though her fingers fumbled on the phone. "It's just that your blood is." She stopped herself, glanced at me, then spoke rapidly into the receiver. "Dr. Brennan, Station 3 immediately. Yes, right now. I have a donor with rh-null blood." I didn't know what that meant, but the way she said it, like she'd uncovered the Holy Grail, made my chest tighten. Around us, other donors scrolled on their phones or watched the morning talk show on TV, unaware that the man sitting across from them, the one who'd lost everything, was about to find out he carried something priceless in his veins. "Keeley, what's rh-null?" I asked. She hung up and began setting up another collection kit, her movements suddenly careful, almost reverent. "Mr. Rafford," she said, "rh-null, or golden blood, is the rarest type in the world. Only 43 people on Earth have it. Your blood can save lives. People who have no other matches. 43 people out of 8 billion. I looked at my arm where the needle was taped in place, at the thin tube carrying dark red blood, and tried to understand how a man whose wife had called him worthless 2 weeks ago could suddenly be one of the rarest humans alive. The door burst open, and a tall man in a lab coat rushed in. Dr. Brennan, according to his badge. He looked at me like an archaeologist staring at a new discovery. "Mr. Rafford, I'm Dr. Brennan, the medical director." "Keeley, are you certain?" "I ran it 3 times, she replied. "Doctor, it's null." He pulled up a chair beside me, close enough for me to smell the coffee on his breath. His excitement felt out of place in this worn-down donation center, where people sold parts of themselves to pay bills. "Mr. Rafford, I need to ask you a few questions. Has anyone in your family ever mentioned rare blood? Any unusual medical history?" "My mother died when I was 2, I said. "Car accident. My father never said anything about blood types. He's a retired railroad engineer in Topeka." "We'll need to run a full panel," Dr. Brennan said. Then his phone buzzed. When he looked at the screen, his expression changed. "That's impossible. How could they know already?" "Know what?" I asked, but he was already pacing, speaking into the phone in medical terms I didn't understand. I caught only fragments. "Yes, confirmed null. He's here now. I understand the urgency." For a moment, I considered leaving, taking my $50 and walking out before this got any stranger. But then I thought of my son, Bryce, struggling through college, while his mother reminded him daily how much of a failure I'd become. I thought of my brother Vaughn, who let me sleep on his couch and eat his food without complaint, and my father, Russell, who had worked with his hands his whole life and was now offering me his Social Security money just to help me survive. "Mr. Rafford," Dr. Brennan said finally, ending his call, "someone's coming to speak with you. Someone who will make you an offer that could change your life." "I don't understand any of this," I said quietly. That morning, I'd woken up on my brother's couch with $38 to my name. I'd come here to sell plasma so I could buy gas and a few packets of noodles. Now this man was telling me my blood was special. "Not just special," he replied. "Precious. Right now, there's a man in Monaco who needs what you have. His family is sending a representative. She'll be here in 10 minutes. Monaco. The place where the rich kept yachts and gambled fortunes. The place my ex-wife once dreamed of visiting, back when she thought I could afford it. The needle in my arm suddenly felt heavier, like it was drawing out more than blood. "There's more," Brennan said, his tone shifting. "When we identified your rh-null status, the system automatically ran a genetic panel. It's standard for rare blood. Mr. Rafford, we found something in your DNA that doesn't align with your stated family history." "What do you mean?" I asked. "I mean your genetic markers match a very specific European lineage, a family long documented for their unique blood traits." Before I could question him further, the door opened again. A woman entered wearing a tailored suit that probably cost more than my old truck. Mid-40s, dark hair pulled back, eyes sharp and assessing. "Mr. Rafford," she said, "I'm Lucia Corveo. I represent the Morrow family of Monaco. We need to discuss your blood, your lineage, and an offer that will sound impossible, but it's very real." And that was when my story truly began. Not when I lost my company, my marriage, or my fortune, but the moment I realized that sometimes what saves you has been inside you all along, waiting for you to fall far enough to find it. 6 months earlier, I'd been Colton Rafford, owner of Rafford Demolition Services, 14 crews across 3 states, a house with a pool, a wife who hosted dinner parties, and a son in his 2nd year of college. Life wasn't perfect, but it was stable. The morning everything started to collapse, I stood at the Bridgewater Mall site, coffee in one hand, blueprints in the other. The old Brennan's department store had been empty for 12 years, a 4-story brick structure due for demolition to make room for a new shopping complex. It was a $20 million contract, one my company had won against 3 larger competitors. "Colton, I've triple-checked everything," my project manager Denny Holbrook said, waving the permit papers like a flag. Denny had been with me for 8 years. I knew demolition the way some people know scripture. The city had signed off on all the utility shutoffs, gas, electric, water, everything disconnected and capped. I trusted Denny. That was my first mistake. The second was not checking the basement myself one last time. The third was being too proud of landing the biggest contract in my company's history to ask the questions that could have prevented everything. The demolition was flawless until it wasn't. The charges detonated in perfect sequence. The building came down exactly as planned, collapsing neatly inward. Then, as the dust cleared, we heard the hissing. A moment later came the sharp, unmistakable smell of natural gas. "Everyone back!" I shouted, and my crew scattered. The gas main we'd hit wasn't on any city blueprint. It had been installed back in 1962 by a company that no longer existed, feeding a part of old downtown that had been redeveloped several times since. No one alive remembered it was even there. Thank God, no one was hurt. The fire department evacuated 6 blocks. The gas company carried out emergency shutoffs across half the business district. That night, the 11 o'clock news led with aerial footage of my disaster. Words like negligence and catastrophic oversight spoken over shots of my company logo printed on every hard hat. The lawsuit started the next week. The city wanted $10 million in damages. The gas company wanted $5 million. Every business that lost a day of income demanded compensation. My insurance company sent a team of lawyers who spent 3 days reviewing our paperwork before giving their verdict, right there in my own conference room. The policy clearly states all permits must be verified independently, their lead attorney said, sliding papers toward me. Your signature confirms that all underground utilities were mapped and cleared. Since that wasn't true, we're denying coverage. But the city gave us the wrong information, I argued. Their blueprints were inaccurate. Then you should have verified independently, he replied flatly. It's in your contract, Mr. Rafford, page 47, subsection 12. Within 4 months, everything was gone. The company I'd built over 20 years dissolved. The house I'd bought when Bryce was born was foreclosed. The trucks, equipment, everything, auctioned off to pay a fraction of what I owed. My accounts were frozen, my credit ruined. Melora lasted exactly 2 weeks after the foreclosure notice arrived. "I need to stay with my sister Patricia for a while," she said one morning, already dressed, her luggage waiting by the door. Patricia pulled up in her Mercedes, but didn't come inside. "I need time to think about us, Colton." "Think about us?" "Mel, I need you now more than ever." This is when married people support each other. She looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before, like I was something stuck to her shoe. I didn't marry a failure, Colton. You're 48, about to be homeless, and you can't even afford to take me to dinner anymore. She grabbed the jewelry box I'd given her on our 15th anniversary. You know what you are now? Just another broke, middle-aged man who couldn't make it. 22 years, Mel. We've been married 22 years, and for 21 of them, we were fine. She paused at the door. My lawyer will send papers. Don't contest it, Colton. Just let me go with whatever dignity you have left. After she left, I sat in the empty house surrounded by boxes I couldn't afford to store and called my brother Vaughn. Come stay with me, he said right away. The basement's small, but it's warm and dry. Vaughn ran a small HVAC business, enough to support his family, not enough to comfortably house his older brother who'd lost everything. His wife, Denise, tried to be kind, but I could see the strain in her eyes each time she set out an extra plate. My father, Russell, called every few days from Topeka. Son, I've got about $12,000 in savings, he'd say, his voice rough with emotion. It's yours if you need it. Dad, you're 73 and living on Social Security. I'm not taking your money. You're my boy, Colton. Let me help. I'll figure it out, Dad. I always have. But I hadn't. By January, I was down to my last $40, eating ramen twice a day, applying for jobs I was either overqualified for or too old to get. The construction foreman position in Davenport was my last real shot, but I needed gas money to make the interview. That's when I saw the sign outside the BioLife Plasma Center. New donors, $50 first visit, $50 for something my body made for free. It felt like the perfect metaphor for how far I'd fallen, from signing million-dollar contracts to selling my blood for grocery money. From being Colton Rafford, successful businessman, to just another man with nothing left to sell but himself. By then, Vaughn's basement had become my whole world. A pull-out couch with a broken spring, a card table for meals, and a small window showing a sliver of sky. Every morning, I woke to the sound of Vaughn's kids getting ready for school, their footsteps overhead reminding me of the normal life still happening above while I hid below. Bryce had called the night before, trying to sound upbeat, but I could hear the worry beneath it. Dad, I've been thinking. I can take a semester off, get a job. There's a construction company here hiring. Absolutely not, I said, gripping the phone tight. You're 3 semesters from graduating. You stay in school. But Dad, Mom told Aunt Patricia you're living in Uncle Vaughn's basement, eating ramen every day, that you don't even have money for gas. Hearing that stung worse than hunger. Your mother doesn't know everything, Bryce. I'm fine. I have an interview next week in Davenport. Big project. They need an experienced foreman. Dad, let me help. I can send some money from my work-study job. Bryce, stop. I'm your father. I take care of you, not the other way around. Promise me you'll stay focused. Okay, Dad. I promise. After hanging up, I stared at the ceiling for hours, doing the math over and over. $40 in my wallet, Davenport 90 miles away, gas at least 30, leaving 10 for food. The math of being broke was simple and brutal. The next morning, Vaughn left early for a job. Denise was helping the kids get ready for school. I overheard her on the phone with her mother. No, Mom, he's trying. He applies every day, but who's going to hire a 48-year-old former business owner for entry-level work? They know he'll leave as soon as something better comes along. I waited until they left, then went upstairs. The pantry had a few cans of soup I wouldn't touch. That was their food, not mine. I had 2 packs of ramen left. I made one, ate it standing at the sink, and tried not to think about the steaks I used to grill on weekends. On my walk to the library, where I used the free Wi-Fi to apply for jobs, I saw that same BioLife sign again. New donors, $50 first visit. I stood there for 10 minutes watching people go in and out. Some were college kids doing it for extra cash. Others looked like me, middle-aged, tired, carrying the weight of failure in their shoulders. $50 meant gas to Davenport. It meant a decent meal before the interview so I wouldn't look as desperate as I felt. It meant a few more days to pretend I could still climb out of the hole I'd fallen into. At 8 a.m. that Tuesday, I walked in and filled out the forms with shaking hands. The questions were invasive and humbling, but I answered every one. Have you eaten today? No. Are you currently employed? No. Is this donation for personal financial need? Yes. The waiting room smelled faintly of disinfectant and quiet resignation. A woman across from me read a romance novel, pretending she wasn't here out of necessity. A young man in construction, boots slept in his chair, probably between shifts. We all acted like this was normal, like selling parts of ourselves was just another routine errand. Colton Rafford. A nurse called my name. Her tag read Keeley. She looked about 25, fresh-faced and kind. A sharp reminder that I was 48. First time? Yeah. Never thought I'd be here. She led me to a recliner and began preparing the needle. No shame in it, Mr. Rafford. You're helping save lives. Everyone needs a little help sometimes. Some more than others, I replied, watching her tap my arm for a vein. You'd be surprised, she said. Last week, a lawyer came in. Before that, a doctor. Hard times don't discriminate. The needle went in smoothly. My blood streamed through the tube into the collection bag. Dark red, almost purple under the fluorescent light. I thought of my father, who donated blood regularly when I was a kid. He'd take me along to Red Cross drives saying, "It's what decent people do." Only difference, he did it for others. I was doing it for $50. Your blood looks really healthy, Keeley said, checking the flow. Good color, good consistency. Then she frowned, leaning closer. That's strange. What's strange? She drew a small vial from the line and held it up to the light. I need to run a quick test. Standard procedure. Nothing to worry about. She moved to a machine in the corner, placed a drop on a slide, and looked into a microscope. I watched her posture shift, spine straightening, breath catching. She looked again, then a third time, before stepping back from the microscope as if it had shown her something impossible. Mr. Rafford, she whispered, eyes wide. I need to get the director right now. Please don't move or disconnect anything. This is important. Am I sick? What's happening? No, sir, nothing's wrong. Everything's about to be very right. Her tone had changed, sharper, urgent. Stay still. I'm getting Dr. Brainin. She hurried out, leaving me with the quiet hum of the machine drawing my blood. Around me, other donors scrolled through their phones unaware. The TV droned on about mortgage rates, and I almost laughed at the absurdity. Within minutes, Dr. Brainin arrived, tall, thin, composed. He looked from my blood sample to the computer screen, then back again as if solving a problem that shouldn't exist. Mr. Rafford, we need to run a comprehensive panel immediately. I can't afford that. No charge, he said quickly. This is extraordinary. He pulled up a chair, his eyes bright with restrained excitement. Your blood type is rh-null. We call it golden blood. Only 43 people in the world have it. I blinked, trying to process words that didn't sound real. Is that bad? Bad? He repeated, almost smiling. No, remarkable. Your blood can be given to anyone with rare blood types in the Rh system. It's universal for people with no compatible donors. You're literally 1 in 200 million. His phone buzzed. He answered quickly, speaking to someone in clipped tones. Yes, confirmed. He's here now. I understand the urgency. He hung up, then dialed another number. We've received an urgent request. There's a situation. What kind of situation? Before he could answer, the door opened sharply. A woman in an expensive suit entered with the confidence of someone used to control. Everything about her, from her Italian leather shoes to the Hermes bag, radiated wealth. Dr. Brainin, she said briskly. Miss Corvello, he introduced. This is Mr. Rafford. She turned to me, her professional calm barely masking desperation. Mr. Rafford, my name is Lucia Corvello. I represent the Morrow family of Monaco. Henry Morrow is critically ill and needs a transfusion within 12 hours. You're the only match we've found in North America. Monaco, that's in Europe. Yes, she said. The family jet is waiting at the executive airport. Mr. Rafford, they're prepared to offer $2 million for your immediate cooperation. $2 million. The number hit like a physical jolt. I looked at the blood flowing from my arm, the same blood I'd come to sell for $50. But we need to leave now. Every minute counts. This is insane, I said. This morning I woke up broke in my brother's basement. Now you're telling me someone will pay $2 million for my blood? Mr. Rafford, she said gently, Henry Morrow is one of Europe's most powerful industrialists. His shipping empire employs 30,000 people. He has children, grandchildren. He's been searching for a compatible donor for 3 years. To him, you're not just a donor, you're hope. I thought about Bryce struggling through college, about my father too proud to ask for help, about my siblings who never said how much it cost to keep me afloat. 2 million would change everything. Still, something felt off. If he's been searching for 3 years, why the rush now? He suffered internal bleeding yesterday, she explained. It's a condition that's been managed for years. He needs surgery, but without compatible blood, the operation will kill him. We have less than 10 hours to get you there. What about the DNA test? I asked, recalling Keeley's mention of additional analysis. Dr. Brennan hesitated, glancing at Corvello. That can wait, he started, but she interrupted. No, tell him. He deserves to know before he decides. Dr. Brennan pulled up a chart on his tablet. Complex data I couldn't make sense of. When we confirmed your rh-null status, we ran a full genetic panel. It's standard for rare blood cases, but we discovered something else. He paused, his tone shifting. Mr. Rafford, did your mother ever mention anything unusual about your birth? My mother died when I was 2, I said quietly. Car accident. Why? And your father never remarried? No. What does this have to do with my blood? Miss Corvello stepped forward. Mr. Rafford, the genetic markers Dr. Brennan identified match a specific family line. The Morrow family has been searching for biological relatives for 30 years. Henry Morrow once had a younger brother, Vincent, who disappeared in 1973. My mouth went dry. So Vincent Morrow came to America and changed his name to Russell Rafford? She nodded. Mr. Rafford, the man you're being asked to save, Henry Morrow, is your father's brother, your uncle. The room tilted. That's impossible. My father was born in Kansas. His parents were farmers. Your father was born Vincent Morrow in Marseille, she said calmly. He left France after a family conflict over inheritance and built a new identity in America. She took out an aged photograph, its edges yellow and worn. 2 young men stood beside a yacht, champagne glasses raised, smiling. One was clearly a younger Henry Morrow. The other stopped my breath. Dad, I whispered. It was him, my father, Russell Rafford, maybe 25 years old, dressed better than I'd ever seen, standing beside a yacht larger than my brother's house. Your father walked away from one of Europe's largest shipping fortunes, Miss Corvello said softly. Henry respected his decision and never sought contact, but now Henry is dying, and his children don't share the rare blood type. Only Vincent's descendants do. My father is Russell Rafford from Topeka, I said, though even as I spoke, the pieces aligned. His silence about his childhood, the absence of photos before 1975, the muttering in his sleep that I dismissed as gibberish but now realized was French, the way he always avoided questions about his parents. Call him, Dr. Brennan suggested. Ask him yourself. My hands trembled as I took out my phone, the same phone I'd used that morning to apply for low-wage jobs. I dialed the number I'd known all my life. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Colton, everything okay? Dad, I need to ask you something, and I need the truth. Is your real name Vincent Morrow? Silence. For so long I thought the call had dropped. Then I heard his breathing, slow, deliberate, like when he was lifting something heavy or solving a problem. Finally, in a voice older, sadder, and touched with an accent I had never noticed, he spoke. How did you find out? Those 4 words changed everything. The man who taught me to use a hammer, who worked 40 years for the railroad, who clipped coupons and lived modestly, was someone else entirely. I'm at a plasma center, I said. They found something in my blood. There's a man in Monaco who needs it. Henry Morrow. Henry, he repeated, voice breaking like a crack long hidden. He's dying. Dad, why didn't you ever tell me? Because I chose to be Russell Rafford. I chose your mother. I chose America. I wanted to build something myself, not inherit it. Vincent Morrow died in 1973. I killed him the day I boarded that plane to New York. But Henry Morrow is your brother, my uncle, and he's dying. He's a good man, my father said, his voice thick with decades of emotion. We had our differences, but he's family. It was never truly about money. It was about freedom. He wanted me to be someone I couldn't be. They're offering $2 million, Dad. He laughed, a sound I hadn't heard in years, light and real. Henry always did love grand gestures. Once, when we were young, he bought every rose in Nice just because a girl said she liked them. Dad, I need the truth, all of it. Come see me after you save my brother. I'll tell you everything then. But go, Colton. Take the money. Save Henry. Tell him Vincent forgave him 40 years ago, and tell him I named my son after the American West because I wanted you to be as free as I felt when I first saw those open plains. Dad, go, son. Some things are bigger than our past. I hung up and looked at Miss Corvello. I'll go, but I want to understand everything. You will, she said, already on the phone arranging transport. The car will be here in 5 minutes. Dr. Brainin removed the needle carefully, and Keeley bandaged my arm with gentle precision. You're about to save a life, Mr. Rafford. Maybe more than one. The ride to the executive airport felt surreal. Miss Corvello sat across from me in the leather interior of a Bentley, making calls in rapid French. I heard my father's real name several times, Vincent, and it sounded foreign. The jet was ready when we arrived. A sleek white aircraft marked Morrow Industries. Ever flown private, Mr. Rafford? I've never even flown first class. Inside was like a hotel suite, cream leather seats, polished wood, a bedroom in the back. A medical team waited with equipment. Dr. Sarah Ashford, Henry's personal physician, introduced herself. Your blood will allow a surgery that can save his life, she explained as we took off. Without it, he wouldn't survive the operation. You're his only hope. During the flight, Miss Corvello showed me more photographs. My father beside Henry at weddings, on yachts, in boardrooms. In every photo before 1973, he looked trapped. Then she handed me one final picture. My father standing alone on a dock, gazing at the Mediterranean. Even in the grainy image, I could see the restlessness in his stance. He left a note, Miss Corvello said. Henri kept it all these years. She handed me a yellowed page, ink faded but legible. It was in English, in my father's handwriting. Henry, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. Not because I hate you or our family, but because I love you too much to become someone I'm not. The company, the money, the expectations, they're yours. You were born for it. I was born for something else. I'm going to America to find out what. Maybe I'll fail, but it will be my failure, earned with my own hands. Tell Papa and Mama I'm sorry. Tell them I'll always be their son, just not the one they planned. And tell yourself, brother, this isn't goodbye. It's me finally learning to breathe. Vincent. We landed in Monaco at sunset. The hospital looked more like a luxury resort than a medical center. Henri was in a private wing that occupied an entire floor. When they wheeled me in for the first transfusion, I met my uncle for the first time. He was frail, smaller than I'd imagined, but his eyes, dark, sharp, and familiar, were my father's. You have your grandmother's eyes, he said in accented English. Vincent's boy. He wrote me once when you were born, said he named you Colton after the American West he loved. Said you were his greatest achievement, greater than anything the Morrow fortune could offer. The transfusion lasted 4 hours. Between his brief rests, Henri told me about their childhood, the empire their father built, and the argument that drove Vincent to leave. It was never about money, Henri said. It was about choice. I wanted him to choose family. He wanted to choose himself. We were both right and both wrong. Do you regret not reaching out? I asked. Every day, he replied. But I respected his choice. That was the only gift I could give him, his freedom. The surgery was scheduled for the next morning. My rare golden blood, unknown to me for 48 years, made it possible. Henri survived and recovered quickly. Within 3 days, he was sitting up, color returning to his face, even joking with his children, my cousins, as I now realized. The $2 million appeared in my account as promised, but that wasn't the only reward. Henri's daughter Isabel, a successful developer expanding into American markets, spoke with me over dinner on my last night in Monaco. We need someone who understands demolition and rebuilding, she said. Someone we can trust, family. I hesitated. I lost my company. I failed. She smiled, a smile that reminded me of my father's. You lost to bureaucracy, not failure. Besides, she said, starting over is in your blood. 3 days later, I returned to America, no longer the same man who had walked into that plasma center desperate for $50. The money in my account was real. I checked the app dozens of times just to be sure. But what truly changed me was the knowledge of who I was, where I came from, and why my father had buried that past. My first stop was Topeka. Dad was waiting at his duplex, coffee made, sitting at the same kitchen table where he once helped me with schoolwork. But now I saw him differently, not just as Russell Rafford, retired railroad worker, but as Vincent Morrow, the man who had abandoned wealth to build something genuine. Henri sends his regards, I said. He's well? Dad asked quietly. The surgery was a success. He said you're welcome home anytime. My father smiled, the kind of smile that carried decades of regret and peace. I am home, Colton. I've been home since the day I met your mother. Tell me about her. About everything, I said. For 6 hours, my father became Vincent again. He told me how he arrived in New York with $20,000 and a plan to disappear, how he took railroad work because constant travel made him hard to trace. He met my mother, Linda, when his train broke down in Nebraska. She served him coffee and pie and asked why he looked so sad. She never knew, he said. I wanted to tell her, but how could I? How do you tell someone you love that you've been living under another name? Did you ever regret it? I asked. Every Christmas I couldn't give her what she deserved. Every time you needed something I couldn't afford. But then I'd see you and Vaughn building forts in the yard, and I knew I made the right choice. You grew up free, Colton. Free to fail, free to succeed, free to be yourself. That's worth more than any inheritance. That evening I called Bryce. Dad, how'd the interview in Davenport go? He asked. I didn't go, I said. Turns out I had somewhere more important to be. What are you talking about? Your grandfather has stories to tell you, and you won't have to worry about tuition again. Dad, what happened? I donated blood, Bryce. Sometimes when you think you're at your lowest, you're exactly where you need to be. The next morning, I called Melora. Colton, why are you calling? I told you my lawyer would handle everything. I'm not calling to argue, I said. I'm calling to thank you. Thank me? For leaving. For calling me a failure. Because if you hadn't, I never would have walked into that plasma center or discovered who I really am. What are you talking about? I learned that sometimes being broken is how you find out what you're really made of. Goodbye, Melora. Have a good life. I hung up before she could reply. For the first time, I had the last word. Within a month, I was back in business. Rafford International Demolition, now a subsidiary of Morrow Development, landed its first $40 million contract in Chicago. I rehired 6 of my old crew, the men who'd stuck by me even when I couldn't pay them. Heard you came into some family money, my foreman Jake said. Something like that, I replied. Turns out I've got relatives in shipping. 6 months later, I stood in my new office. Not as lavish as before, but built with my own hands, earned in every sense. My father sat across from me, switching between being Russell and Vincent as the day went on. We reviewed applications for a training program I'd launched, giving underprivileged youth a chance to learn construction and demolition. Giving people second chances, Dad said approvingly. Someone once told me failure isn't falling down, it's staying down. I nodded. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find what you're really worth. $2 million, apparently, he joked. No, I said, thinking of Henry and the family I never knew. I'm worth exactly what everyone's worth, whatever someone else needs to survive. Last week, the plasma center called again. Another patient with a rare blood type needed help. This time, I didn't hesitate. Some gifts come from what we build, others from what we achieve, but the most precious ones flow quietly within us, waiting to be discovered when needed most. My name is Colton Rafford, son of Vincent Morrow, who chose to become Russell Rafford, nephew of Henry Morrow, whom I saved with the blood that bound us across continents, father of Bryce, who will inherit both my story and my choices. I learned that sometimes being called a failure is the first step toward realizing what success really means. It took selling my blood for $50 to discover I was worth millions, not because of what I built or lost, but because of what was already inside me. The rarest thing about us isn't what we achieve, it's what we carry unknowingly, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. My father chose an ordinary life and made it extraordinary. I was forced into ordinary circumstances and discovered the extraordinary within. Blood doesn't care about money, status, or opinion. It just flows, carrying unseen gifts that sometimes change everything. If this story resonated with you, if it made you rethink failure, family, or hidden strength, please like this video and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Leave a comment below about a time when your lowest moment led to something unexpected. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories about ordinary people uncovering extraordinary truths in everyday life. because everyone has something flowing through their veins. Sometimes it's rare golden blood. Sometimes it's resilience. But it's always worth more than you think.